Okay, I think the audio is going to work, but we shall see. Hello and welcome to Office Hours with Amber. I'm Amber and this is Office Hours. We are in week 2 of June, which is my OA Robot month, and we are kindly joined here today by Eric Ohm, who is going to dazzle us with some advanced features of OA Robot, more focused around Lambda Robot and some other big fancy things. For traditional months of Office Hours with Amber, one sec. Week 2 of June, which is okay. OA Robot month. It's working. Okay, vibes. Traditionally for Office Hours with Amber, week 1 I would be Googling, YouTubing, ChatGPTing, trying to learn things about the subject matter I'm working on. Week 2, I would be trying to apply that to something I'm working on in my real life. Week 3, I would get feedback from a professional, and week 4 is the community call. This month is a little different. So week 1, Eric dazzled us for an hour about all of these kind of 101 level features of OA Robot. And then this week he'll be showing us 201. And next week I'll be putting myself to the test, making sure I could put everything into rotation. I'm slowly gathering a list of automations that I'd like to experiment with or either create for myself or figure out if they exist inside of there. But next week it's going to be a lot of like going through the documentation and the list to see all the cool stuff that exists already. So without further ado, Eric, how are we?
Doing pretty good. I always like to talk about lambdas and OA robots. So
This is your moment and I'm so excited. And as most of you that have been following along with my journey, I did Let's 2 months ago, Lambda last month. So I'm finally feeling prepared that I'm going to be able to speak the same language, be able to fully weaponize Lambda Robot. But I know that you've also used Lambda Robot as a way to train people on how to use them. So really, whether you're completely new to Lambdas or a seasoned expert, I think there's things here for you. So without further ado, I'm going to open up your screen and then the floor is yours. We're ready to be dazzled.
all right. So first of all, I think I definitely oversold Lambda Robot because I told you that even if you've never created a Lambda before, this is going to make it all incredibly easy. And it definitely does make it easy, but there's a lot of power in Lambda Robot. So we're going to start with some really basic stuff to start off with, and then we can get a little bit more nuanced after we get the basics down. The first thing is probably answering the question, what is OA Robot and where do I get it? If you don't already have OA Robot, those people out there in the Ambersphere, um, it's oarobot.com. You can now jump straight to joining an orientation, and you'll get the download link and you can install it. I highly recommend going through our 90-minute Zoom orientation so that I can kind of get you started on a strong foot. Um, so the concept of OA Robot, we kind of went over this a little bit last time, but I'll recap super quick, is OA Robot is a micro automation launcher. And a micro automation can be, it could be a formula, it could be a Lambda, it could be a VBA macro, it could be Power Query M code, it could be a AI prompt. There's all kinds of things that qualify as a micro automation. And basically, OA Robot is a launcher for you basically curate your micro automations into what we call robot commands. And your robot commands are available to you to run in this cute little dialogue that pops up right where your cursor is. It's got a list of commands, and you can run them in that list. Robot commands are kept as metadata in regular Excel workbooks. So when you create a robot command, it's embedded in the workbook you created it in. You can email that to your friends. If they have a robot, and then they have those same commands. So we call those command collections. So Lambda Robot is not part of OA Robot. It's actually something that we created as a command collection that we created with OA Robot. So it's basically a creator. We were the creator, and we created a command collection, and then we're making it available to other people. And it's open code. You can keep poke around in the VBA, and if you really dare to. And it's something that you can share for free. It does. You do not have to have the paid version of OA Robot to use it. And because OA Robot documents its command collections itself, it comes with documentation. In fact, if you create your own command collection of your own commands, your own collection of commands, OA Robot will also automatically create documentation for your collection of commands, as long as you curate your commands nicely. So I'm going to show you really quick that in this at list, these symbols on the left, you can either click on them or you can type them. So if I type at or click on at, it's going to take me to the list of all my command collections. So these are the ones that I have loaded in mine. I have way more than anybody else, obviously. CompBot, that's one that Jack Kennedy put together. There's DIMS, some of DIMS stuff in here. And somewhere in this list is Lambda Robot. I can actually see it right here. So one thing to know is that you can select that and right click and do help, or just do F1 on it, and you can see they automatically generated documentation for that collection. So everything that I'm going to show you today is our commands that are in this documentation. So Lambda Robot has 27 robot commands and 15 parameters. I'm not going to get much into what parameters are, but the quickest way you can think of it is commands, like in VBA, commands are like subs, like macros, and parameters are more like functions. They return a value.
Mm.
So there's all these things that you can do, and I'm going to be showing you a spattering of these to get started.
So before you get started, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt. So if I made myself like a forecaster robot, like of all of my like funky weighted averages and my like forecast accuracy, data memorialization or archival, like if I had something that I could build like an entire collection for just like that subset. So if I was like a forecaster at this company, this company, this company, I could then take my whole robot with me so that I don't have to rebuild off all their nonsense.
exactly.
Fantastic.
Yes, and you can share it with other people. So if it's a mix, it could be a mixture of VBA commands and formula commands and Power Query commands, whatever. And when you create all of those, then that command collection, that file, has the metadata stored in it, and you can just email it to somebody, and as long as they have the free version of OA Robot, they'll be able to run those commands just by uh, them registering that workbook, that command collection.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Now I want to like create, like basically sub collect all of my different brains for like manufacturing amber and forecaster amber. And so I think bucketing my future steps are like even like general amber like day to day amber. Cool. Okay.
Yes.
The wheels are going to be turning over here. They might not be directly related. Basically, I'm like cherry picking things from all of what I've seen over the last 2 weeks and seeing what can I possibly accomplish in week 3 that I can dazzle you with in week 4, which we'll see because you're a genius. But okay, keep going. I'm excited.
Yeah. And you've seen the old website where it said the robots are coming.
Yeah.
Really, what that's referring to is the robots are the command collections that people are going to create and share
Yeah.
with us, including us. There's a lot that we're putting together and making available to people. But we're hoping that other people create collections and share them with people.
Absolutely.
Um, before we get into actually creating any lambdas, I'm going to go over something that is Definitely uh, something that we've all done, which is we've gotten our hands on other people's collections of lambdas, and we want to be able to quickly inspect them or analyze them. So before we even start creating lambdas, I'm going to show you that. One of the collections that I make available is Array Robot, and I'm going to open that up. And this has a number of different lambdas that are little examples of lambdas that I'm showing off in here.
Mm.
And anytime you're in a cell with a lambda in it, so you can see that I'm invoking a lambda with these arguments. That in this particular case, this remove rows takes out the third and fifth row and returns back the result. As long as my cursor is in a cell that has an invoked lambda like this, you can Control Shift O to bring up a robot, and then I'm going to do Edit Lambda. The way it works is you can type edit lambda, and you're going to find it in there too. But it's we call this hyper search, makes it super fast to find things. So all you have to type is EL in order to find edit lambda, and then you just hit enter on that, and it'll run it. And what this is going to do right now is it's going to swap out the
Mm.
word remove rows, which was right here, with the definition of that lambda right in the cell. So it's basically in cell editing of the definition of your lambda. And it actually puts a little cell note in there. If you point at it, it says editing lambda remove rows. That's because if we can go in here and edit it, make changes to this however we want, and then when we are done making those changes, we can do SL for save lambda, and that's going to save your changes back. So gone are the days where you have to mess around with the lamest dialogue in Excel history, which is the name manager.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't have that much against the advanced formula editor. I'm using that for things, but honestly, I haven't used it in 2 years because
Wow.
I've been using Lambda Robot, and I don't need the advanced formula editor anymore.
That is really
It just
cool.
feels much more natural to me
Yeah.
to just edit it in a cell rather than um,
Go dance
something
through
else.
all of the dialogue boxes. No, that's huge. And I think
Yeah,
especially for a newer person to lambdas like me and then adopting a whole worksheet of lambdas, it's like I don't know what all these like, especially if they have really shorthand or don't label things well, then being able to just boop edit and then be able to see everything in that cell and then also go back to save so you don't really torch anything.
yeah.
And even for like debugging, being able to quickly come in and out. Oh, fantastic. So cool. Okay. Keep going.
The other thing that often happens when you get your hands on somebody else's lambdas is they're typically not formatted nicely. So you can notice how nice that is with its indented and with line feeds at each let. Usually, I'm going to unbow this, which is no, I'm going to bow it. Bow is compact formula format. This sucks all of the spaces. This is usually what you get your hands on somebody's Lambda, and it looks like this. So the other thing that you can do is you can take anybody's crazy formulas, and it doesn't have to be a Lambda at all. It could be any crazy formula that you get your hands on from somebody, and you can do either you can either type FF for format formulas, or you can do unbow. We call it unbow is the famous Bo Ridabon who likes to keep his formulas as tight as possible. So unbow does the same thing as format formulas, and that will automatically format it nicely. And this
Beautiful.
actually works. You can actually select a whole, sheet full of formulas, and it'll format all of them. We wrote our own formula parser in F sharp. If Harry Gross is curious, that we basically built our own tokenizer, and it's pretty much can handle the most complicated and like strange formulas you can throw at it in and it's very, very fast. So, so that's part of this as well. The next thing that you do when you get your hands on um, somebody's Lambda is you want to be able to debug it, like understand like what is it doing? It's got all these steps in here, and you have to like read through that sequence, keep, include, so forth. If you wanted to debug and try to understand what it was doing, we tend to do this sort of thing where you copy this step and then you paste it down here, and then you copy this step and you paste it down here, and you kind of loop through, cycle through them so that you can understand what the steps are doing. So we've made that easy. There's something called cycle let steps. And again, all of these are listed in that documentation. So cycle let steps, if you run that, it'll swap out notice here, the last step now says sequence. That's the first item. F4 on your keyboard is Excel's redo feature, and we have redo
That's the
hooked up
button.
with, yeah,
I thought it was
F,
F9. I was sitting here like,
no,
I'm
F9 is
close.
calculate.
Yeah.
So now I can just hit F4, and you'll see here that it's just cycling through those left steps one by one. So it really helps if you're looking at somebody's Lambda or let statement that has a lot of steps in it. You can cycle through them and get a better understanding of what's going on.
Which is really nice during competition work, anything, especially when you get an error, like you do this big old let statement and you find it results in an error, then by being able to toggle, and then you're like, oh, it's step three. What's wrong with step three? And then you can diagnose the issue. And that's what debugging is. But for my hometown friends, that's, big time because especially it seems like not a lot of time where it takes to just move the words around, but like it takes a lot of time if you have like a very complex let statement and many steps. So overall, super vibes. I did use this last week. You would be proud. So it's getting into rotation.
Very
Oh,
good. Very
quick
good.
one question about that, and you might be getting to it, but when you're in is F4 the shortcut key for cycling, or like the cycle let steps, or so if I was to be on like,
F4 is just doing a redo of a command.
ooh, okay,
So it's running the last, it's still doing a regular Excel redo. So it's not specific to OA Robot. We just add what we've done to the stack. So when you hit to the redo stack, so that when you hit F4, if the last thing you did was a robot command, it understands what a robot command is and it'll run it.
got it,
So yeah.
cool.
Which also means that you could actually run multiple robot commands at the same time. So when you bring up robot, you actually have the ability to hold down shift and select multiple robot commands.
Oh,
So if you ran like 3 or 4 different things in a row, and you're like, I want to do those 4 things over and over again all over the place, you can run them all at once. And then after you've done that, you can hit F4, 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 and you'll basically be applying those 4 things like wherever you want.
wow.
So that can be a really efficient way of doing it. In addition, after you've run a sequence of them together, you can actually name that and make that into a new command. So
Cool.
that's a very cool thing that you can do as well.
Question about that. And so obviously computers are logical. They go in logical order, and my brain would try to like shove them all into the same door at the same time. How does it know which one to do first? Or would you have to like step through and do it
It
in
goes in
the
the order that you did. it goes in the order that that you had done them in. So
Ah,
if you do step A, Command B, Command C, then when you select the three, it's going to run them Command A, Command B, Command C.
got it. Cool. Yeah, that's big
Um,
news.
and then if you've made a bunch of changes to this and you don't want to save your changes, you want to get out of this kind of edit mode, there's also something you can do called uh, at cancel Lambda edit. So cancel
Ooh,
Lambda edit will bail on your edit and put it back to the way it was. So now it's just invoking it. So this is where we were when we started.
that's important for
Yep.
me, especially.
Yep. There's also a really cool audit feature that's a little bit more heavy duty than the cycle-let steps, and that's audit formula steps. So if we get back into this mode and I do audit formula steps, that's AFS, audit formula steps, this generates steps off to the side for all of the steps in your Lambda, or if it works for just a regular let statement as well. So when I run that, boom, it just created this off to the right. I guess that was a these are in the way, but it basically just it just generated this on the fly. Here's our two inputs. Here's our sequence, our keep. These are those steps that we were seeing, and it basically exploded that into separate steps so you can really quickly analyze what it is that you did wrong. This works great in competition if you're trying to write your entire answer in one big let statement and it's not working right. You can do audit formula steps and they'll
Yeah.
bust it out so you can try to figure out where things were going wrong. Um, so that's uh, so that's a um,
And it's
handy
obviously nice
tip.
that it puts like the let, like when you declare a variable or you declare each step, it's saying it's using those. Is it using the array names? Yeah, array row index. Okay. So it's using those
Yeah.
names for the
Yep.
like kind of headers next to them. So you can kind of keep track of where you're at. Cool.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about generating let statements and generating lambdas. And if you think of the way we just exploded this lambda into separate cells, generating a lambda is going in the opposite direction. You start with some cells um, that are uh, written with helper cells, and then you're generating a lambda based on those helper cells. So I'm going to jump to a blank workbook now. Let me just see. Did I already have a blank workbook? Okay, just leave this over here. Um, so we're going to put a name in here. We're going to say Amber, and um, uh, we're going to say hello to Amber by saying equals hello space Amber. And we'll put an exclamation point to make it friendly. So we just created a function basically, right? We have an input and we have an output. And what we want to do is turn that into a lambda. So this is like the simplest possible lambda to start off with. But if we run generate lambda, so GL generate lambda, um, that will um, that will follow the formulas back and figure out what it's doing and turn it into a lambda. So I just hit enter on that and boom, we got a super simple
Mm.
lambda that is, it figured out. Notice that it named the parameter name, even though it has capitals and has a colon next to it. And it's smart enough to figure out like what a nice name is for that parameter. In this particular case, it didn't need a let statement because it did it all in one cell. But we could have, I'm going to hit cancel on that. And then instead, I'm going to insert, I'm going to say prefix, post fix, and we're going to say hello here and exclamation here. And and now we're going to point these at there. Whoops, I guess I need spaces.
We also got a comment from Harry saying, Generate Lambda made an impression on me when Dim used it to defeat Clash on Titan in 20 minutes.
Oh, didn't need that one. Okay, there we go. So now we have multiple steps here, and I'm going to show you what happens when I generate a Lambda on that. So
Mm.
look what it did. It it can't tell the difference between, are these inputs to this, or are they part of the actual meat of the of what you want to do? Like, should they be inside or should they be part of the parameters?
Mm.
So it automatically it can tell that these are hard coded. So it defaulted those to being parameters. See how it did that?
I forgot that
Um,
lambdas can take many parameters, which I like assumed you needed a let to do multiple parameters. So this is just reaffirming the lambda knowledge. Keep going.
So in this particular case, maybe we didn't want prefix and postfix to be parameters. We wanted those to be part of our logic. So if you select those, you can use this little button here that says turn it into a step, and it will turn those
Oh.
into steps. So I just removed those from the parameter stack and added them to the step stack. So now we have name as our parameters and prefix and postfix as uh, our values. And actually, in our particular case, you put the hard coded value in there.
Mm.
You can also do things like I could select these and say, I want actually the value in there. So I could click on those and turn those to values. Now I have those hard coded in there.
And a
So
circumstance you'd
there's,
want the value is like, for instance, if I was to put that lambda in other workbooks and use it other places and
yeah,
not want it to, like if I wanted it to be those specific things versus something inside of that file. Interesting.
yeah. You can also rename your steps. You could exclude steps. So if I took these out, you'll see that it actually ends up going back to the way that we had it before because
Mm.
it just substituted those values in where those variables are. If you fool around with this and you mess things up too bad, you can always hit reset and it always goes right back to the beginning again. So you can fool around with that. You also have the ability to make parameters optional. So I can click on that and boom, it
Oh,
makes them optional automatically.
okay.
So yes, and if your formulas use is omitted in them, then it'll automatically detect that those parameters were intended to be optional, and it'll make them optional automatically.
This is going to be big
So
stuff now that I like have the basis of a lambda, like being able to really funk around in it with this because I've been getting kind of confused with like I've been using like lets a lot, and then a lambda is usually paired with like a by call, by row situation, and then I won't really like I get a little confused as to where like the let versus the by call versus the lambda are supposed to live, but like then I'll eventually get there. But this is going to be cool to be able to like, and especially the optional status. I think that's going to be very helpful. I mean, all of this is helpful, but
so I clicked OK on that dialog, and now I have this lambda in my cell. So it basically just generated that lambda. I never had to write the lambda myself. All I did was wrote formulas in cells, and it could be multiple cells, helper cells, or whatever. And then I ended up with a lambda. And then to save that as an actual lambda, then you do save lambda, and it'll ask you what you want to call it. So we'll call this, say, hello, and I'm going to give it a command name of, say, hello. Say hello to given name.
So for this, the Lambda name would be what would go into the naming manager. The command name would show up in your command collect. What's
It's
the
actually metadata that's stored so that later on, when you do plus plus and do a Excel formula command, that's how you add a formula command, then it will automatically remember that information and set up your command for you. So all you have to do is say, click OK, and now you've created a command. So now if I come over here and I type Eric, I can say hello, and it says hello, Eric. And notice I ran that on a hard-coded cell. So I could say Harry, Eric, and Amber, and I could select all of those, and it runs like a macro in that. Here, let me copy this first because I'm going to do another thing with it. So if I select those cells and run say hello, boom, it just
wow.
applied a formula, which is really a lambda, right? It applied a lambda in batch to each cell and automatically returned the result of it, the evaluated version of that as values. If you did the same thing, but you did it on a formula, it would be smart enough to know that when we do it on a formula, that it should run that on the array that you're running on it. So if you run it on hard coded numbers, you're going to get hard coded numbers or text. If you run it on something that's dynamic, you're going to get something that's dynamic.
Beautiful.
So it's really turning formulas and lambdas into like little macros. Of
Absolutely.
course, you can also turn VBA into macros. A lot of these guys here are VBA macros that are being run. So,
So,
um,
question.
yep.
So, okay, so we generate a lambda and then, or we generate a lambda, we save it. We save it as the lambda name that would appear in the naming manager, the command name that is the metadata that, um, so would I need to press plus plus to add that command to my collection so that I could use it in other files? Or do I, as soon as I press
Oh,
save lambda,
an excellent question. So when we added that, when I did plus plus on that, it asked me what command collection I wanted to save that in, and I just left it as the default. So it put it into book two, which is this book here.
got it.
If if you do that and you decide, oh shoot, I really wanted to put that into my other workbook, you can right click on it and do copy to and choose. Look, there's a Harry robot. I started a Harry robot for Harry, and I never finished it. I should do that. Um, but basically, you can copy to other collections that you have, and it'll clone it and put it into those
Cool.
other collections.
So, if I was to create Amber Robot, where should I be saving that file to be able to copy paste more stuff to it?
You can keep it wherever you want. You
Oh,
just need to register it with OA Robot. So you're telling OA Robot where you keep it, so that it knows that it's a command collection that you want to have those commands be available all the time.
mm,
Because I have like a ton of command collections, but none of these files need to be open. It just knows where they are, and it's able to read them quietly and with them being closed, and it'll know what all of the commands are that are available in all of those different in all of those different collections. So to add a command collection, you do this, you do plus and then command collection. And you just point at where that file is, and then it gets registered in your at list.
Beautiful. Okay, cool.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
excited because
yeah,
now
and I'll,
the wheels are turning on like Amber Robot, which is going to be a lot
yep.
of haphazard nonsense, but I'm excited.
And if you have Amber Robot open already, you can actually right click on it here and do register, and that'll also do the same thing.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
yep.
Okay, back on subject.
Um,
That's big
yeah,
important though. I'm excited.
yeah. So, similarly to how we just generated that Lambda, you can also generate let statements. So in for competition purposes, that can be super handy because what happens is, let me see if I have case open. Let me split case levels. Boom. And let me just pick one of these. So in a situation where maybe um, you want to split this text into characters, and then you want to just keep, what are we doing here? We want these last four, so let me keep those columns and then
Cool.
turn them to values and then sum them. Um,
That's crazy.
oh, I wasn't supposed to sum them. What was I supposed to do? Oh, convert them to decimals. Let me remove that last outer and then do, oh, I need to concat them.
To undo a
Concat
step, that's
array.
Control Shift Z or Control Alt Z or you had a certain undo step.
Control Shift Z is
Control
remove
Sh.
outer function.
Ah,
Um, but what I was actually supposed to be showing here is that if you don't do that in all one step, so if I do uh, I'm doing this very easy case in the most hard way. It's not, this is not, these are not the steps that you should be taking for this.
no, but
A
what you were
right
doing was cooking,
a
so
right four would have been much easier, but I'm just kind of showing off here. So
absolutely.
um, so if I have this cell here and I um, I split the characters, so now they're going here, and then um, I'm trying to do something that takes up more space than one row.
Yeah.
So I'm going to concat just these last four of this spilled array. So I'm kind of breaking the rules here because I'm pointing at, this is a spilled array, and I just pointed at the last four characters of it, which is not a spill formula, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do a bit, what
I
is
think
it?
it's hex to dex
Bin
or
to
yeah. Heck. Binary to
bin to
decimal.
deck
Yeah.
of this. Please be 14. Yes.
Perfect.
So I did all of this work, and let's say that I didn't know a way to do that in a way that would, I could do it all in one row because it's a complicated thing I'm doing here, right?
Absolutely.
And then you have that problem is, well, now how do I copy this down for all these guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you can do is you come over here and you point at your answer on this same row, and then you do a generate let statement, which is you just type let, and it does generate let statement, and it'll actually figure out what that let statement should be. And if you look at what it did, it even took, see the step two is the concatenate of the take minus four. So it actually made that a dynamic formula by taking the right four character elements of that, even though
Wow.
we kind of cheated
Yeah.
and just pointed at it without even making it dynamic.
It's almost
Like
like formula
it's
autocorrect. It's
yeah,
like,
it's
you meant
like it
this.
figures out it figures out what you needed to do, and it does things like V stacks and H stacks. You could have like an array going this way, and then some arrays going down underneath it, and then you point at that whole thing as one thing, and it'll V stack and H stack them all together. It's
Wow,
really, it's
that's
really slick
wicked.
what it can do.
I think that's so important you told me that
So
now because the last 2 months doing lets and lambdas and doing things the hard way and like learning the array, how they all work together. And like I've like learned those now and I've like kind of got like collected some hours on it. So I feel like now I can appreciate this more because I actually had to learn it first. So now I'm like, oh,
yes,
I'm gonna be cooking. It's gonna be crazy.
so the beautiful thing now is because we have this all in a let statement right here.
Just brrr.
Now I can just copy it down, and I have all my answers. Whoops, copy it down.
Wow. That's huge because
I'm not
sometimes
buying that those don't look right. Should there be zeros in there? Is that
uh
right?
well, I mean, maybe. I'm not well, I think so.
Is this pointing
But
at the right place?
I think it's right.
Oh, I guess we can just save our answers and see. Hey,
Fantastic. No, that's
by the
so
way, that was
cool.
a robot command right there that I did Control Shift S, and it saved them into the green cells over here. It referenced them automatically, and it copied the cells to the clipboard so that you can copy them into your answer sheet. And
Whoa.
if it detects that there's a little one of those summary cells down below, then it'll copy that cell so it's automatically in your clipboard, and you can just paste it directly into the FlexiQuiz.
That's wild. That's some wild work. That's like something that you wouldn't know you needed until you've already done a lot of the tests and you're like, that is kind of an annoying step.
it's
Um, that's
it's so
hilarious.
it's so sad that I have all of these tricks to make me so incredibly fast, and still yet I am am hugely uncompetitive at the.
Well, I'm not a competitive person, so like I could have
I'm
like
not either.
the funny thing is on that last like the FMWC UK the one we did Saturday, I didn't know that when you're in the middle of a formula and you press alt down, it gets rid of the IntelliSense like telling you like the pre-fill auto on the all that. So the first 10 minutes of me competing was actually me googling how the hell do you fix that? Cuz I wasn't even interested in the competition. I was like, I'm gonna be bad anyway. And then I got 90th, and I was like, ugh. I digress. But okay, so the way that you, like the quote unquote haphazard way that you went from like spilling the characters to referencing it not dynamically to referencing in a different cell, not in a row, and like it's all over the place is exactly how I compete sometimes. There's now that I'm
Yeah,
getting better at structural things, it's different, but especially being able to just do it for one and then copy down for the rest is huge because a lot of
yeah,
times what I've found is if there's circumstances where I need to filter a source data table down, but it's got multiple rows and I like can't just do my grid style to the right, then I'm like, So being able to do it
yes.
once is like so cool. So, man.
And it also noticed I didn't label anything, so it
Yeah.
didn't it didn't know what to call stuff. So it looks around. See, like it figured out that it looked up two cells and saw this and made that the that statement. And then it didn't know what to call these, so it just called them step one and step two, and it always calls the result. So
Yeah.
it's very quick and forgiving. And these formulas could have been spanning across multiple sheets. It's like you could do
It
all kinds of
just
stuff.
traces all the way back around. That's crazy. And I like
One,
the funny thing is like one to just use this is like so crazy intelligent, but two, how I don't even want to open Pandora's box on how you made this or coded this or how any of that works in the background, but I feel like you could do like a 10-hour TED talk on all of the little intricacies of how all this works. It's just so crazy. Okay, keep going. Just need to give you
yeah.
your flowers because that's nuts.
Trust me, nobody wants to know how we actually did this behind the scenes. It's a lot of VBA code. Um, so let's see. So let me go back to this guy because I have we talked about audit formula steps,
Mm-hmm.
cancel lambda edit we talked about. Oh, let's talk about input cells. So you know this case here where we had some cells were intended to be parameters and others were hard coded, and it was kind of like, well, um, it guessed that all three of these should be parameters, and it was kind of wrong because that's not exactly what we wanted. Let me just show you this. Let me put this back. This plus a space plus this plus this. So if I do I for mark
Mm.
as inputs is basically labeling a cell as this is intended to be an input. And if I choose any of the cells to be marked as input, then that's saying that all of the other cells are not inputs.
Oh,
So I just make that, let me make these bold. Um, we'll say hello, Lambda, and then we'll make that formatted as a report style, remove uh, my grid lines. Now it's looking good.
beautiful.
So now if I generate a lambda off of this, um, generate lambda, when it generates it, it knew that the only parameter was this guy, and these other ones, it made them inside the let statement because they're not yellow. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So you can target what because this happens a lot. It also happens sometimes that this cell here that you want to be your input actually has a formula in it. It's not a
Yeah.
hard coded value. So you can also make formula cells inputs so that it doesn't have to go by what's a hard coded value or what's a formula. It'll just force that cell to be treated um, uh, like a parameter. That's
Mm.
helpful in competition because a lot of times you do a bunch of stuff and then that last part is like the reusable part that you need on the next step, and you can just take a cell kind of in the middle of your last calculation, make it marked as input, and then generate a lambda or a let statement off of just like the last part of your logic, which
Wow.
is very handy. One other thing in here is you can. I didn't save that as a that generate lambda. I canceled out of it, so we're still where we were. The other thing you can do is you can copy this cell and go somewhere else and do paste lambda statement. So paste lambda statement will do the same thing. It'll generate a lambda, but it will do it somewhere besides where your input is because maybe you don't want to replace this formula here. You want this to continue to be your full logic here. So you can copy this cell, go anywhere else, and when you paste it, you can paste the uh, the the generated lambda somewhere else,
Wow.
which is pretty slick. Um,
Oof.
that there's a lot, there's a lot in here. If you do list available lambdas, it'll create a table with all of the lambdas that are defined in a workbook, which is great when you get your hands on somebody else's file with a bunch of lambdas. You can run that and it'll list them all with all of the definitions. Um, and that's probably a good place to stop. uh, Enable bow mode and disable bow mode is if you enable bow mode, then whenever you generate a lambda, it'll be in the super tight format instead
Yeah.
of in the nice formatted. Because some people just like, oh, I like my formulas to be all tight and
In
hard to
what
read.
world?
And we
Yeah.
want to honor those people's desire to keep their job security by making their lambdas unreadable.
Looks scary. Yeah. No, okay. That's fair. That's fair. Wow. So,
Yes.
okay, I'm just seeing include lambda dependencies. I just made eye contact with it. What does that mean?
include Lambda dependencies is um, that that makes it so that if you have a Lambda that refers to other Lambdas and you want to
Ooh,
create a Lambda that is fully self-contained, it'll trace back your formula and find all of the other lambdas that you're referring to and import them as steps into your lambda. It's basically making a lambda that has other lambda dependencies independent of just make it a one all in one lambda.
lambdaception.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I've got, well, I guess a small question about that is, have you, how often do you interact with lambdaception? So how I'm imagining is if I have a lambda, which is a pre-written magic code of what I want to do, and then inside of that is like a bycall or a map or a scan. Is that like a situation of lambdaception, or is that like something else?
Wait, what is lambdaception?
Where there's a lambda inside a lambda, you know, like
Is that lambdaception?
yeah,
Is that a
lambda
term? Did you
inception.
just
Like
coin that?
yeah, well,
I
you were
like it.
saying like when it's referencing and housing other lambdas, I'm like it's a dream inside a dream. It's inception.
Right,
So
right.
that
I love
really,
it.
I think you should call it like generate like the lambda dependencies. It's just lambdaception unwind or
Okay.
dive
So
into the
now that I understand what you're saying,
yes, yeah.
what's your question?
So okay, I'm trying to think through because I'm still very new to lambdas, but so lambdas are pre-written, like basically your own cute manufactured magic code that you can call on to do magic. Inside the magic, I'm trying to think of reasons why I would have a lambda inside of a lambda. And my thought is like a circumstance where you have a something happening and then inside you have a map or a scan or a reduce, some like a bycall or something that requires like a lambda also. Is that like a scenario where it would have multiple, or is it like basically TLDR? Give me an example of when a lambda inside of a lambda happens or would be useful.
Um, well, like let's say that uh, like in that case where we had um, the binary numbers,
Mm-hmm.
if we wanted to grab the last four, we're using one lambda in order to get the characters. The way that I was doing it, why is my characters not coming up?
Side note, we got a chat from Kobe. I changed the name of
Split
Lambda for letter
case.
split to character split, and it broke all my lambdas that reference letter split.
What?
Horrible. RIP. He changed the name of one of his lambdas to letter split, and it broke all of the ones that were referencing his original lambda.
Oh yeah,
Big
don't do that.
RIP. I had a nice moment with my intern
Hey,
today
Kobe.
talking about data schema and like column names and why you gotta be pretty confident in from the jump, especially if you're externally data connecting or power querying through. And so she was like, "Well, why don't we just change the column name from this to like match this other thing?" And I'm like, "We absolutely could do that, but think of every Excel workbook that references this it externally data connects." She's like, "Oh," and I was like, "And that is why we have workarounds." But I digress. Okay, back on subject.
Um, so I realized that this is not coming up because this is not text. I only do
Ah,
split by characters on text.
yep.
So you might see I'm calling my characters lambda in order to split this up, and then I might have additional things that are you know doing things like concatenating,
Ah, oh, okay.
right? So that
Oh,
characters was it was being used in one of the steps that I used. So so if you were to generate a lambda off of this, you're basically going to have a dependency on this characters thing. And if you want a Lambda to be one that you can pass around or do things with without having to remember, oh, I have to bring characters along with it,
Yeah.
which, by the way, OA Robot takes care of. So when you generate a Lambda off of a Lambda that has dependencies, it'll automatically include all of those dependencies. Um, and oh, and then the other thing that I forgot to mention is that so we created that command, that say hello command. Now that's available in any workbook. So if I open a brand new workbook and I do it again, we'll put Kobe in there. And now we can do say hello on that. So even though that Lambda was not not in book three, obviously, because I just opened it, right? When we run that command, it's installing that that into the name manager on the fly.
Got it.
And then this doesn't apply to you, but it probably applies to somebody out there, that if you work in a different language of Excel, like Portuguese with Portuguese functions and semicolons instead of commas and all that stuff, OA Robot will convert your formulas to your specific language and international settings automatically. So you always get the you always get it in the you define it in English, and then it's basically um, reusable anywhere,
Wow. Um,
which is pretty cool.
uh, Backpedal back to the Lambda section, the like your last worksheet. Can we go back to the
Yeah.
other one? Um, so I think what cracked, or like, I don't know, not cracked my brain, but like, what homogenized the idea is same thing with dynamic arrays. When you house a unique inside of a filter, inside of a this, inside of a that, like basically how you can build on the dynamic arrays by just taking that result, wrapping it with another dynamic array function. Same thing with the lambdas is different with because all of those lambdas have so many substeps of things happening, and that's why you'd want them all homogenized into one so that you don't have to call 17 things. So cool. Okay. It clicked in my brain when I watched you do it that time. Cool. Well, now, okay, so we have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to go back to just us two on the screen. So, very enlightening. I feel like I learned like 700 new things. And I'm really, because I know you gave me a lot of these keys to the castle like a month or two ago. And I'm glad I took the time to learn lesson lambdas to be able to really interact and understand the full utility of this and how much time savings there is. Because not like I'm, the best lambda writer or the best let writer, but I know enough to be able to completely be like super stoked about the tools that are inside of this. And then secondarily, especially now that I'm learning and like getting other people's lambda notebooks, being able to go through it and make it make sense for me or like adjust some steps to make that make sense. And that's a good way to basically instill better lambda hygiene in my workbooks by seeing really good ones already written, and then you could see like the kind of creative usages of it also that way, which is wicked. So comma, any words of wisdom for me for next week? Otherwise I'm going to tell you my plan for what I think I'm going to
Um,
do.
I say keep it simple is
Meanwhile I'm
what I
like,
would
I'm going to
recommend.
build the world.
Yeah. Um, uh, Today was really about lambdas and lets. We didn't really delve into turning VBA into robot commands and all of that, which is extremely easy to do. But the but I would suggest fooling around with generating let statements and generating pretty basic lambdas, and that would be uh, if you just get your feet wet at using that, that would be great.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yep.
Here's some of my ideas. So what I've noticed, or how I've been trying to attack mentally, this is the same what I do with product design. This is what I do at work when I'm feeling friction in a process, is basically it's a first step is observation of like sitting with yourself and like walking through your normal day to day, and then kind of observing things you've been avoiding and then looking closer to why am I avoiding it. So for instance, we've got a database of all of our formulas, and it's always a meticulous, very specific, lots of numbers. And if you mess it up, you're messing something like production up. So it's a lot of pressure. And so that looks like a lot of like 5 or 6 steps that like generally it's like bring in the PDF, take the PDF out. And we talked about this a little bit the other day, but I was looking at like, okay, what in this process can I potentially micro automate? And so basically, right, the last week or so, I've been just observing my frictions. And so my frictions so far, which you're going to hear more about later, data archival and material memorialization, essentially copy and pasting data off somewhere so that it could be referenced later, especially with like forecasting, with like simulation runs. So that's number one on my list. Number two, report formatting, which I'm excited to dive into the things that you already made. Center across selection. I would love to just have a hotkey for that. Did you already build one? If so, what's it
Oh yeah.
called? It's just center across selection.
Well, yeah. Oh, I think the one that I have is just running the menu, what's on the menu.
Okay, perfect.
It's just a send keys command, so it's just doing exactly what it does on the menu. So it didn't merge the cells, it just centered.
Perfect.
So that is one of the pro features is the send keys command
Oh,
is
yeah.
just sending keys to the so if you look at the definition of that one, it's doing this. It looks like Alt H FA, that gets to the dialogue, and then you do Alt H on the dialogue, and then you do a J, a down key, and 2 enters. That's the keystrokes that you have to do in order to do center across selection. There's no
Beautiful.
direct, there's no direct way to do it. You have to kind of do it through a dialogue. So that's called a send keys command. Just like when I said earlier, there's different types of micro automations. Some are formulas, some are macros, some are send keys, some are lists of other commands, so forth.
That's wicked. And I love that. That's fantastic. Okay. Then the last thing on my list is the PDF to flat data, or like really, like I want to take a little bit of, I think I'm going to take some time to do some basic M code Power Query stuff, because my goal is to look through the different types of like the send keys, VBA, Power Query, OpenAI. I want to make one, or like either make or really put into routine one from each of those areas, just so I know how like the how it all kind of bumps and frictions together, or like how, just to get a vibe. So that's my plan for next week. But for we're actually 3 minutes after, so excited because there was just so much to talk about. But next week I'll be alone, trying my best, and you'll be in the right wing, on the side wing, ready to like jump in and be like, no, Amber, be better. And then on the community call on week 4, we'll come back together and I'll dazzle you with all the stuff I've been doing. But cool. Okay. Thank you for thank you for presenting, and then thank you for everyone who's watching along. Kobe, Harry, very nice to see you again. And then I'm gonna go hop into the after hours for a little bit, in the chit chat chamber over in Discord. So if anyone wants to join, I'll see you there. But otherwise, I'm going to slowly click the stop streaming button, and we'll go from there.